It was a bright spring morning in Little Rock, Arkansas, 2001. Sunlight poured through budding trees, casting warm patterns across the quiet streets. Birds chirped above, and the city hummed with the familiar rhythm of school buses, morning commutes, and neighborhood activity. Among the city's residents was Abigail Monroe, 24, a dedicated nurse at Central Arkansas Medical Center. Abigail was known for her compassionate nature, tireless work ethic, and the genuine warmth she extended to everyone she encountered. Patients often remarked on her ability to make them feel at ease, while colleagues admired her dedication and problem-solving skills. Outside the hospital, Abigail lived in a small, well-kept apartment in a friendly neighborhood. Her home reflected her love for music, photography, and gardening. Family and friends described her as thoughtful, creative, and endlessly supportive, always ready to offer guidance or a listening ear. Her life was full but grounded, a blend of professional dedication, personal passion, and meaningful relationships. April 17, 2001, began like any other day. Abigail prepared for her early morning shift, reviewing patient charts and organizing her notes. Around mid-morning, she left her apartment for a short break, planning to visit a nearby cafe to enjoy a cup of coffee and relax before her next shift. She carried a small backpack with personal items, a journal, and a few photographs of friends and family. By early afternoon, Abigail had not returned to work or her apartment. Concerned colleagues contacted her family, her father, Richard Monroe, mother, Elaine Monroe, and younger brother, Nathan Monroe. When they arrived at her apartment, everything appeared in order, yet the backpack remained by the door, untouched except for her journal, which was partially open on the kitchen counter. The sudden, unexplained absence immediately sparked concern. Officers from the Little Rock Police Department, led by Detective Caroline Hayes, were dispatched. Initial observations offered little insight into Abigail's whereabouts. Her apartment showed no signs of struggle or unusual disturbance. Investigators began canvassing nearby streets, speaking with neighbors, cafe staff, and anyone who may have interacted with Abigail that morning. Volunteers from the neighborhood quickly joined, distributing flyers and sharing information about her daily routines and habits. Witness statements were initially sparse. Abigail had lived a calm, structured life, with no conflicts or disputes to suggest an obvious reason for her sudden disappearance. Still, her absence was keenly felt throughout the community. Friends, patients, and colleagues participated in search efforts, organizing volunteer groups and neighborhood watch teams. Candlelight vigils were held outside the hospital and in local parks, emphasizing hope, solidarity, and support for the Monroe family. Weeks passed without a concrete lead. Detective Hayes and her team reviewed photographs, video surveillance from nearby businesses, and detailed accounts from friends and co-workers. Each investigation was conducted with care, emphasizing accuracy and respect for Abigail's life and the concerns of her family. By 2002, the case had become a carefully monitored cold case. Evidence, including Abigail's journal, personal items, and the preserved environment from her last known location, was archived meticulously. The city of Little Rock established the Abigail Monroe Community Health Fund, supporting youth wellness programs, mentoring initiatives, and volunteer-led medical outreach, a tribute to her dedication and caring nature. Over the next decade, the investigation remained active in the background. Advances in forensic technology allowed preserved evidence to be re-examined with greater precision. Her journal and personal items were subjected to new analysis, creating the potential for DNA testing and other investigative methods that had not existed in 2001. Detective Hayes retired in 2011, passing the case to Detective Jonathan Mercer, known for his methodical approach and attention to detail. Mercer emphasized careful preservation of evidence and the maintenance of Abigail's legacy, ensuring that her contributions to the community remained central to the investigation. By 2015, Advances in forensic databases allowed previously inconclusive DNA samples from Abigail's belongings to be cross-referenced with national and regional records. While no immediate matches were found, this created the groundwork for future breakthroughs, highlighting that evidence preserved carefully could yield results even decades later. Community engagement played a key role throughout these years. Schools organized health and wellness programs inspired by Abigail's dedication as a nurse. Libraries hosted reading and mentorship workshops, emphasizing empathy and service. Volunteers maintained annual vigils and remembrance activities, ensuring that her story remained present in the collective memory of Little Rock. In 2018, forensic laboratories revisited Abigail's preserved backpack and journal. Subtle traces of fingerprints, fibers, and DNA were detected that had been previously overlooked. This evidence suggested interaction with an individual of interest, though no immediate identification was possible. Nevertheless, the discovery reinforced the investigative principle that critical information often remains hidden in plain sight, awaiting the right technology and careful analysis to reveal its significance. Detective Mercer organized a comprehensive review of the evidence, re-interviewing witnesses and reanalyzing historical documents. Patterns emerged: brief interactions in public spaces, subtle movements through neighborhoods, and recurring presences near Abigail's daily routes. These details, combined with forensic advancements, began pointing to potential individuals who could provide clarity on her disappearance. By early 2019, investigators identified Derek Holloway, a local contractor with sporadic employment in Little Rock during 2001, as a person of interest. While his involvement was not immediately clear, historical records, community observations, and minor connections to Abigail's known routines suggested he might hold critical information. Investigators carefully mapped Holloway's movements, cross-referencing with preserved forensic data and witness recollections. By mid-2019, the pieces began to form a coherent picture. DNA traces, fingerprints, and environmental evidence connected Holloway to Abigail's preserved belongings. Archival interviews with former colleagues and neighbors further corroborated his presence near locations relevant to Abigail's daily life. While the case had remained unresolved for nearly 2 decades, the convergence of technology, archival research, and community cooperation created a pathway to resolution. Detective Mercer coordinated with state and federal agencies, combining historical research, forensic analysis, and community engagement to plan for Holloway's eventual questioning. Surveillance and historical tracking confirmed patterns that would guide investigators in a respectful, procedural approach, ensuring both safety and integrity of evidence. By early 2020, Holloway was approached for a structured interview. Investigators presented corroborated evidence, timelines, and preserved forensic findings, emphasizing clarity and truth while maintaining dignity and respect. Initial responses were cautious, but as investigators presented clear connections between him and preserved evidence, Holloway began to acknowledge certain movements and interactions that had previously been ambiguous. Throughout this process, Abigail's life remained central. Community programs in her honor continued, celebrating her dedication to nursing, health initiatives, and youth mentoring. Schools, hospitals, and volunteer organizations emphasized the positive impact of her life, ensuring that the narrative focused on remembrance, inspiration, and education rather than the circumstances of her disappearance. By mid-2020, the investigation had culminated in a full confession from Derek Holloway. The confession provided clarity about the events surrounding Abigail's disappearance and confirmed long-standing fears held by her family. Yet the focus remained on resolution, respect, and honoring Abigail's legacy, transforming decades of uncertainty into a narrative of understanding, closure, and community inspiration. By early 2021, the investigation into Abigail Monroe's disappearance had entered a decisive phase. Decades of preserved evidence, community recollections, and modern forensic advancements had converged, allowing Detective Jonathan Mercer and his team to analyze the case with a clarity previously unavailable. The preserved evidence included Abigail's journal, personal belongings, and environmental samples collected from her last known location. Each item was carefully examined, revealing minute traces, fibers, fingerprints, and DNA that had been invisible or inconclusive in earlier analyses. With advanced laboratory techniques, investigators detected links connecting Derek Holloway to items Abigail had carried, illuminating the path of the investigation. Holloway's movements were reconstructed through a combination of employment records, utility bills, and interviews with former colleagues. From 2001 onward, he had maintained a transient lifestyle, working on short-term contracts and moving across towns in Arkansas. These relocations had complicated earlier investigations, leaving gaps in the historical record and creating challenges for law enforcement. Annual community events honored Abigail's legacy. Riverwalk Park, near her apartment and frequently visited by her as a place of reflection, established a wellness corner with educational resources, reading materials, and spaces for mentorship programs. Students and volunteers engaged in workshops, storytelling sessions, and art projects inspired by her guidance, transforming her absence into ongoing inspiration for generations. Detective Mercer reflected on the significance of the case. Even after more than 20 years, a combination of dedication, ethical investigation, and advanced technology allowed us to uncover the truth, he said. But the most important aspect has been preserving Abigail's life and legacy throughout the process. Her story guided every step we took. Educational and mentorship programs flourished, creating a lasting impact on the city. Schools emphasized compassion, service, and learning, while hospitals hosted workshops inspired by Abigail's dedication to patient care. Local organizations developed creative projects highlighting the values she exemplified: perseverance, empathy, and community service. As the city entered 2024, Little Rock continued to celebrate Abigail Monroe's life through community programs, youth engagement, and public initiatives. Children learned about her dedication to others. Volunteers shared stories of her kindness, and families participated in activities reflecting her spirit of service. Her life had become a beacon of positive influence, transforming decades of uncertainty into inspiration and guidance. Visitors to Riverwalk Park and local libraries encountered her legacy daily. Reading corners, wellness workshops, and volunteer-led programs served as reminders of the life Abigail had lived and the difference she had made. The city's commitment to education, mentorship, and service became intertwined with her story, ensuring that her influence remained active and meaningful. Detective Mercer and his team documented the case extensively, creating training materials for law enforcement, educational modules for schools, and public awareness programs highlighting ethical investigative practices. The case became a model for resolving cold cases. It demonstrated that patience, careful preservation of evidence, and community collaboration could bring clarity and closure, even decades later. The Monroe family expressed gratitude not only for the resolution, but for the continued celebration of Abigail's life. Scholarships, mentorship programs, and volunteer initiatives grew year by year, touching lives and providing opportunities for growth, learning, and positive action. Her story exemplified how a single life, lived with compassion and dedication, could leave a lasting imprint on an entire community. By late 2024, Abigail's influence was visible across Little Rock. Children participating in educational programs, volunteers mentoring youth, and healthcare trainees receiving guidance all traced inspiration back to her example. Her life had transcended the limitations of time and circumstance, becoming a symbol of perseverance, service, and enduring positive impact. The Arkansas 2001 cold case had finally found resolution, yet the legacy of Abigail Monroe continued to thrive. Through her dedication, mentorship, and unwavering compassion, she had transformed the community. Her story became a reminder that ethical action, persistence, and a commitment to helping others could ripple across decades, shaping lives and inspiring countless acts of service. In quiet moments at Riverwalk Park, families, students, and volunteers remembered Abigail. The laughter of children participating in reading programs, the discussions of young medical trainees, and the ongoing volunteer projects all reflected her enduring influence. She had become more than a figure from the past. She was a guiding presence, shaping the values and actions of a city committed to learning, empathy, and service. Through legal closure, community celebration, and ongoing programs inspired by her life, Abigail Monroe's story became a beacon of hope and inspiration. Little Rock had not only resolved a decades-old mystery, but had also transformed the legacy of a remarkable young nurse into a living, thriving source of education, mentorship, and community strength. Her story demonstrated the profound truth that dedication, compassion, and integrity leave enduring marks on the world, even decades later. The life of Abigail Monroe continued to illuminate the paths of countless individuals, shaping the future of a community forever enriched by her example. It was a golden morning in Sacramento, California, 1998. Sunlight shimmered across the Sacramento River, birdsong mingled with the distant hum of morning traffic, and the city seemed full of promise. For residents like Olivia Harper, 23, the day held all the potential of a fresh start. Olivia, a dedicated elementary school teacher, had spent years cultivating a love of learning among her students. Her classroom was a lively, welcoming space filled with colorful charts, student artwork, and a sense of joy that reflected her own vibrant personality. She was known for her patience, creativity, and the way she encouraged each child to express themselves, learn, and grow. Parents often praised her ability to inspire confidence, and colleagues admired her dedication and thoughtfulness. Outside the classroom, Olivia's life was full of small joys. She enjoyed painting, hiking in nearby parks, and volunteering at the Sacramento Children's Literacy Foundation. Her apartment, modest but cozy, reflected her love of art, music, and books. Family and friends described her as compassionate, spirited, and endlessly supportive, someone who nurtured growth wherever she went. On April 12, 1998, Olivia had planned a short visit to a local art gallery before returning home to prepare lessons for the following week. She carried a small satchel containing her journal, art supplies, and photographs of her students and family. Her routine was simple, filled with predictable, positive activity, and entirely unremarkable, yet within hours, her absence would be felt deeply. By late afternoon, Olivia had not returned to her apartment or classroom. Concerned colleagues contacted her family, Thomas Harper, her father, Miriam Harper, her mother, and her younger sister, Clara Harper. When they arrived at her apartment, everything appeared orderly, yet her satchel lay by the door, untouched except for her journal, which was slightly open on the kitchen table. The quiet stillness of the apartment contrasted sharply with the growing concern of her family. Police from the Sacramento Police Department, led by Detective Rachel Lynn, were dispatched to investigate. Initial observations revealed no disturbance, forced entry, or evidence suggesting immediate danger. Investigators canvassed the neighborhood, spoke with gallery staff, cafe employees, and anyone who might have seen Olivia that day. Volunteers from the community joined, distributing flyers and sharing details about her daily routine, her appearance, and the places she frequented. Witness statements were initially limited. Olivia was known for her calm, structured life, and no conflicts or disputes suggested a reason for her sudden absence. Still, the community rallied in support. Neighbors organized search parties, local students wrote notes of encouragement, and small vigils were held outside her apartment and the school, emphasizing hope and solidarity. Weeks turned into months without a concrete lead. Detective Lynn and her team reviewed photographs, video footage from nearby businesses, and detailed interviews with friends and co-workers. Each piece of information was treated with care, emphasizing respect for Olivia and her family. By 1999, the case had transitioned into a carefully monitored cold case. Evidence, including Olivia's journal, satchel, and personal items, was archived with meticulous attention to preservation. Community initiatives were launched in her honor. The Olivia Harper Literacy and Art Fund provided scholarships, after-school programs, and youth workshops, ensuring her dedication to education and creativity continued to inspire. Over the next decade, investigators revisited the case as forensic science advanced. Samples from Olivia's satchel, journal, and personal items underwent testing that had not existed in 1998. Fingerprints, fibers, and trace materials were analyzed with modern techniques, creating new possibilities for identifying individuals who may have interacted with her that day. Detective Lynn retired in 2010, passing the case to Detective Marcus Delgado, known for his meticulous approach and dedication to long-term investigations. Delgado emphasized maintaining Olivia's legacy while using emerging technologies to revisit every detail. By 2015, preserved forensic evidence was re-examined. DNA traces, previously inconclusive, were cross-referenced with regional and national databases. While initial searches yielded no immediate matches, the groundwork was laid for future breakthroughs, demonstrating the enduring value of careful evidence preservation. Community involvement remained central. Schools held programs on literacy, creativity, and mentorship, inspired by Olivia's teaching. Art workshops, youth painting initiatives, and volunteer-led programs kept her spirit alive in Sacramento, creating a living tribute while investigators continued their work. In 2017, Delgado's team discovered previously overlooked details in archival records, gallery visitor logs, minor interactions with neighbors, and small notes from Olivia's journal. These forgotten records suggested connections that had not been pursued at the time. Combined with modern forensic testing, the team identified Eleanor Nora Fields, a local event coordinator present at the gallery during Olivia's visit, as a potential witness who could clarify movements that had been ambiguous for decades. By early 2018, investigators were able to piece together a timeline of that afternoon. Subtle details from forgotten records, visitor logs, handwritten notes, and minor receipts helped reconstruct Olivia's steps and interactions. While the passage of time had blurred memories, these small but critical pieces of evidence provided a foundation for renewed investigation. By mid-2018, DNA traces and environmental samples from Olivia's satchel were reviewed with advanced technology. Small fingerprints and material evidence suggested contact with an individual whose identity had not been previously recorded. These discoveries formed a compelling link when combined with the reconstructed timeline and witness statements. Detective Delgado emphasized patience and precision. The investigation focused not on assumptions, but on verified facts, careful cross-referencing of evidence, and the ethical treatment of all individuals involved. The community's focus on celebrating Olivia's life, through art, education, and mentorship, provided an ongoing sense of support and purpose while the investigation moved forward. By early 2019, the team identified Gideon Marquez, a local contractor who had sporadically worked in areas near the gallery, as a person of interest. While no immediate conclusions were drawn, archival records, visitor logs, and forensic traces suggested he might hold critical information. His movements and interactions were carefully reconstructed, respecting legal procedures and the dignity of everyone involved. The investigation emphasized the continued celebration of Olivia's life. Community programs, volunteer efforts, and educational workshops carried forward her values: mentorship, creativity, and inspiration. While the case had remained unresolved for over 2 decades, the dedication to her life's legacy remained a guiding principle for all involved. By mid-2019, forensic evidence confirmed subtle interactions between Gideon Marquez and Olivia's preserved belongings. DNA traces, fingerprints, and environmental samples provided crucial links, offering the first concrete evidence in more than 20 years. Detective Delgado's team meticulously documented every step, ensuring a clear chain of evidence leading toward potential resolution. By early 2020, investigators prepared for structured interviews. They coordinated carefully, ensuring that Gideon could provide information without pressure, respecting his rights and maintaining the dignity of the process. The team approached the case methodically, prioritizing clarity, accuracy, and respect for Olivia's memory. Through careful presentation of forensic evidence and reconstructed timelines, Marquez gradually acknowledged interactions that had previously been unclear. His testimony, combined with preserved evidence, helped fill gaps in the decades-old mystery, providing clarity and paving the way for eventual resolution. By mid-2020, the Sacramento Police Department, led by Detective Marcus Delgado, had reconstructed a detailed timeline of Olivia Harper's last day. Advances in forensic science allowed investigators to analyze previously overlooked evidence with unprecedented precision. Trace materials, fingerprints, and DNA samples from Olivia's satchel and journal provided critical links that had remained hidden for over 2 decades. The team mapped Gideon Marquez's presence near key locations during the relevant period. Employment records, neighborhood logs, and archival footage revealed his movements across Sacramento in 1998. Though years had passed, patterns emerged. Temporary work assignments near the gallery, brief interactions with community members, and repeated appearances near locations Olivia frequented. Investigators conducted comprehensive interviews with individuals who had encountered Marquez. Former colleagues, local business owners, and neighbors provided insight into his habits and routines. While no conflict had been recorded, subtle connections and corroborated sightings suggested interactions relevant to the investigation. Olivia's preserved belongings played a pivotal role. Her satchel, journal, and art materials contained minute traces of fibers and fingerprints that, with modern forensic analysis, linked directly to Marquez. Environmental samples from her apartment and gallery visits were cross-referenced, confirming his presence in areas consistent with the reconstructed timeline.